Ah, my angels, it's story time. Don't really know what sound that was that I just made, but it felt good. Oh my goodness, my lovelies, if you genuflect for safety, genuflect with me now. I have so much that I want to get through this morning, and so I'm just hoping and like praying, Holy Spirit, give me flow. Give me flow. I really want to, I know I'm kind of jumping all over on this podcast, and it's driving my perfectionist, like, shadow side a little crazy, I'm not gonna lie, because I am so committed to this Rebloom series, and I will not completely finish it. It is that, it's that heart and soul, it's that foundational, like, for me, it means it's like my offering, okay? Whether you're watching them or not, maybe some of you guys just enjoy more of the prophetic words, and that's fine. Whatever, I'm putting it out there, and you come to the buffet and take what you need. But for me, I need to finish it, and I want to because I love it. But today is going to be the final episode of Who Am I? I'm hoping if this gets too long, I may break it into two, but either way, this is the last bit really of Who Am I? And I will do I'm wondering if I need to do like a recap episode, or I may do like a summary episode for people who haven't been watching and can't really give it that time. Anyways, I'll figure that out on my own time. But today, I hope you've had a nice morning. It is snowing, and it started snowing as my kids went to school. So I was like, I think they're going to school. I hope they're going to school. They are at school. But at the same time, we are kind of all desperate to go sledding. So if it sticks, then maybe we'll get a chance. We have a really cool space not far that has a steep hill, which gotta run out and find my sleds. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed yesterday's word, if not, which was just about, spiritual shortcuts. I'm still kind of holding in that, but anyways, I'm not going to derail. I'm not going to do it. Today we're going to talk in my kind of common sense terms about what the heck was up with the curses in the garden. A lot of people think that God cursed Adam and Eve for what they did, and the serpent for what they did, but we've really, first of all, not studied it probably not read it massively well. But more than that, today we're just going to bring clarity to what happened. If you already have watched the Sicut Deus and Adam and Eve and Imago Dei, then you'll be brought up to speed that basically it wasn't a moral failing on behalf of Adam and Eve that happened. It wasn't about doing something naughty in the garden. What happened to humanity, the creation story, and the author of Genesis is telling us, is profoundly more physiological and that big word epistemological than we realize. It was truly a change in the way that we think. That's what happened. It was a change in the way that we experience and understand reality. Okay, and it was a massive change to our nervous systems because, as we said, we became like God, Sicut Deus. So I think we left off with Adam and Eve coming out of the garden, and I gave you a little like test at the end or quiz or whatever. You might be suffering from this state if you are like overthinking, hyper vigilant, can't rest, can't ever feel like you have enough. It brings such a peace and an explanation to why. Not like, oh, because I have this problem, why? But why is all of humanity feeling like that by default most of the time? And when I say all, I'm not saying that people aren't having degrees of transformation and help. There are universal principles about having humility that will work for anyone. there are universal principles that will work regardless of whether or not you believe in Christ, whether you call yourself a Christian or anything like that. So that also should help to explain why do some people make so much progress outside of this relational dynamic between Christ and creature. So that's because God's laws are universal, right? But it doesn't mean that that person or people who are not coming into that relationship and that covenant, that new reality, are experiencing the full restoration of shalom, physiologically, epistemologically, and relationally, covenant-wise, okay? It doesn't have the same promises. So, and it's not doing the same thing in the spirit as people who are working really wonderful, amazing principles. But we want everybody to good, and God is good to all. All right, moving on. You guys know that. All right. I'm going to read to you the curse bit. Ready? Okay, this is Genesis 3:14 through 19. Then Yahweh God said to the serpent, because you have done this, cursed are you among all cattle and among all animals in the wild. You shall creep upon your belly and eat the ground as long as you live. And I am going to put enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed. Some versions say between your offspring and her offspring. Her seed will trample your head underfoot, and you will bite him in the heel. And to the woman, God said, I'm going to bring upon you much pain when you come to be with child. You will bear children with pain, and your desire will be for your man, and he will be your master. And to Adam he said, because you've listened to the voice of your woman, and have eaten from the tree about which I commanded you, and said, you shall not eat of it. Cursed now is the ground because of you. In toil you will grow food on it for yourself and all your life long. Thorns and thistles it shall bear for you. Thorns, just remember that, and thistles it shall bear for you. And you shall eat the plants of the field. In the sweat of your face you will eat your bread, until you again become the dust from which you were taken. For you are dust, and dust you shall become. It's quite humbling. Okay, there are 5 questions that pulled out of my little brain when I read this, and here's what they are. Why is the serpent going, or why is the woman going to crush the serpent's head? What is that about? Why is he going to bite her heel? What's that about? Why is her desire going to be for her man? Why is her pain going to come now in childbirth? Okay, why is Adam going to be her master now? These are just the questions. You might have your own, but this is what came up for me. Cursed. Why is the ground cursed? Because of them, right? Yeah, these were my questions. So would you like the answers that I got? Okie dokie. So, I'm a child of the 80s, so it's like, this reminds me of the old, like, news broadcasts. Like when you would be doing at school. Pretending to be a newscaster. Okay, you ready? Again, I just printed this out. Help me, Lord. ADHD is real. People, it's real, but I have spent my life overcoming it. So, highly functioning, managing myself. Well, okay. Stick to the script. All right. So today I want to talk about what I just read to you, specifically about these curses and consequences, because this is so misunderstood. Human beings are not cursed. It might have just sounded like we read curses, but did we read curses? Or did we read consequences? All right. The serpent is cursed. We heard that distinctively. And the ground is cursed. That was that language, perfect. Those two things are cursed. The serpent is cursed and the ground is cursed. The man and the woman are not directly cursed. Instead, God names what life has now become when the trust and the harmony that they previously experienced, the function, was broken. Genesis 3 is not God turning against humanity. It's God refusing to abandon humanity. Even in judgment, he is preserving life. Remember, he didn't kill them. They didn't die. They were exiled and put out of the garden out of mercy. Right? So we know that birth continues, work continues, relationships continue. Even death becomes a limit that keeps evil from becoming eternal. And we're taking this all out of Bonhoeffer's book, Creation and Fall. At least most of my references are coming out of there. But anyways, so what Bonhoeffer says is that the curse and the promise are spoken together. Humanity is not damned. They have not been damned. Humanity is not damned. Okay? Let's lock that in. I'm going to say it again. Humanity has not been damned. They have been preserved. They have been upheld. They have been shown that I love you so much. Out you go before this becomes permanent, right? Okay, so the temptation, this is a little recap, but remember, Adam and Eve were tempted about a lie. Not by a naughty action. It had nothing to do with the apple. It had everything to do with the lie that they chose to believe about God. That he was holding something back from them, or that they should have more than what he had said. You don't want this. And remember, you don't want this because this is the managing of paradox. This is too much. You think, no, you don't want it. We don't want it, but we got it. Anyways, so the serpent comes wrapped in truth, a lie presenting as truth, bending God's words. The lie is that life can be secured apart from God. The great sin is not rejecting God outrightly because they didn't want to do that. That was not their intention, but it was on the serpent's part, using God's word against God, becoming the judge of truth. The fall happens when humanity stops receiving life and starts to try and produce it themselves because they have to be God now. So why the serpent's head is crushed? What is that about? So the head in the ancient world represented authority. So what this is telling us, the author is telling us, is that the crushing of the head is going to break, that humanity is going to break the serpent's rule over them. Okay? God refuses to give creation over to this lie. He has saved them, right? Humanity is placed back into conflict. It's between the enmity between them and the serpent, right? But they are preserved in struggle rather than being annihilated. Okay, so just like God did with Lucifer, okay, you want to be like God, go be the God of what was at that point in time. We're not even going into that ruin. So he gives Lucifer this kind of, he allocates this atmosphere of earth, not Eden, but earth. Eden was that little portion, earth was beyond, but earth was in ruin. Oh, I need to do an episode on that. That's a whole different thing. Anyways, so he's said to Lucifer, okay, free will, right? God is not threatened. Remember that. He is never threatened. He is never insecure. So he gives him over to what he wants. Then he gives Adam and Eve over to what they chose, because again, free will. All right, you want to be God? You're going to have to go and do that out in this area, though, because you can't be a false god and be in Eden. Represents like heaven on earth. You can't oppose God. There, you know how it says no flesh can glory in my presence? You can't stand before God as a false god. It's physically not possible. It's metaphysically not possible. You would burn. In your pride and your conceit, you would burn. That's why also Lucifer is cast out and disfigured. Anyways, blah, blah, blah. Stay on track. Okay. So that's what the serpent crushing the head is about. Why the serpent biting the heel? Okay, because the victory that humanity is going to have by crushing that head with their foot is going to cost them something. It's going to be costly, okay? That is what the biting of the heel represents. They're going to get nicked. The heel represents vulnerability in the ancient world. So humanity is going to win, but wounded. Faithfulness leaves scars. Ugh, I can't even read that. Faithfulness leaves scars, my stallions. And victory must be won again and again and again and again. Okay. Why? I have to stay on. I have to run. Why is there pain in childbirth? Okay. So life has continued, but through ruptured relationship. Remember, if this is off balance, this is off balance. So that dominion that they had, that I'm free for you, I'm here to serve you, right? I don't know paradox yet, so love is just, it's capable of being both love and self-sacrifice, right? But that awareness of paradox turns love into a blessing and a burden. So this responsibility is suddenly felt, right? Then evil becomes the desire to either possess or destroy the other person. So Bonhoeffer does actually go into a whole commentary on actual sex and not just sexuality, but sex. And it's very interesting how he talks about sex is one of the places you can see this the most in the world post-fall, because the desire to either possess someone or to destroy, or that which destroys them, right, is seen in this dynamic the most. So Adam no longer can just love Eve. Even his sexual intercourse with her, his knowledge of it has changed. So there is a sense that she belongs to him, right? That possession. So she either belongs to him, or what his intimacy with her is going to do is going to destroy her. And it's not done in innocence anymore, okay? Now, the reason why the pain in childbirth, check this out. Because now they will have, paradox has been split apart, right? So where is the pleasure, half of the paradox, right? Pleasure and pain, tov and ra, right? Good and evil, pleasure and pain. That's the way we now think of evil as pain. We now think of good as pleasure. That's what happened in humanity's head after the fall. They were never meant to be split apart. How do we know that? Because now what was one thing before, sex and childbirth, right? That was one thing. Now it's two different things. Pleasure, sex, pain, childbirth. Do you see that? Where they're going to be experiencing pleasure in sex, she is now going to be paying the cost of belonging to Adam, right? Because she, instead of helping him carry his burden, she had him she became the burden. And so anyways, everything was torn apart, and I got to stay moving forward. So now she in childbirth is going to experience the consequence of not functioning the way she was supposed to, serving, helping, upholding, right? Now she bears the cost through childbirth, which is the other half of that equation. She'll have pleasure during sex, but she'll have pain during childbirth. And Adam will now experience the pain of not being able to do anything about that. She has to suffer that on her own without his ability to cover and protect that. That is truly like revelation, okay? Pleasure and pain were meant to go together. Okay. Right. Why her desire is for her man. I love the way that version says her man and her woman. Okay, his woman. Desire becomes distorted. Okay. Oh, did I read the last bit? Birth still brings life, but it is now with pain and risk. This pain belongs to the broader human condition of broken harmony. It's not a curse, it's broken harmony. You got that. Okay, why is her desire for her man? Desire has become distorted. So rather than her primary desire being for her communion with her creator, she now is split, and she is aware of her desire for her husband, for her other in the 3D. And that is going to be a burden to her rather than a blessing. We get it. We get it, women. Okay. And you get it, guys. Okay. Why the man is the master over her. All right. So this describes the consequence, not a command. Control, the control that they're now wrestling with, replaces the trust when communion is lost. So mastery is a symptom of alienation. Mastery is a symptom of alienation. So they are no longer free for the other. Okay? They are now, I wrote Nietzsche. People always think so many crazy things about him, but when I was reading Nietzsche in school, I was like, it was after I knew about this stuff, and I was like, you are describing the state of Sicut Deus perfectly. You're describing us as little gods, but he wasn't meaning to do it like that. He was very cynical and trapped in his mind, in his observations, correct observations about humanity, but he was just seeing us in our absolute the fallen state, our underbelly, if you will. But he says psychologists should bethink themselves before putting down this is a book where he's just ripping every member of society a new, you know what. He's doing it really well too. He's like, you philosophers, you think you're so full of yourselves. You theologians, you're so full of yourselves. He's literally going through. He has a list. He has a numbered list of everybody in society, and he's just like, you're self-motivated. You want to do everything to look better. He is hitting it smack on the money, though. Anyways, okay. Psychologists should bethink themselves before putting down the instinct of self-preservation. Self-preservation is the cardinal instinct of an organic being, of humanity. Self-preservation. Should I read more? Okay, stop. No, I'm not going to read more. I'm just going to leave that. What he's saying is we are now, our desires have been completely reorganized into self-preservation. And I have a little theory I want to explore with the whole fight or flight. Anyways, self-preservation is our new cardinal instinct. So what does that mean? It means that it is safer for me, if I'm trying to preserve myself, it's safer for me to try to control the outcome, right? Yes, Nietzsche. Yes, Nietzsche, you are right. Christians, we should all be like, Nietzsche. Oh my, we should be preaching Nietzsche from the pulpit. He's very eloquent in discussing how self-centered we are. And that is where control is coming from. It's coming from self-preservation, and it is the opposite of trust. Okay? Trust comes out of rest. It comes out of going, I'm not even thinking. I'm not going to make my decision on how I'm going to handle you out of this place of fear, because I trust you. Love trusts, love believes. I shouldn't say love trusts. I should say love believes. Okay? I'm not talking about people who are not good for you to be around, by the way. Let's not be silly with this conversation. I'm talking about a very loving relationship. Okay. Moving on. Why is the ground... Oh, so did I read that mastery is a symptom of alienation? When we master the art of controlling, we are completely alienating ourselves from creation. Think about that one for a minute. Okay, why is the ground cursed? Because human rupture echoes creation. The ground is resisting, but it still needs us to till it, okay? The dynamic was that, and I didn't really go into this in any of my other episodes, but creation had a master too. Everything had a master, because in God's economy, mastering meant the most benevolent person, the most responsible person, right? Like God, the most loving person. So you did not resist having a master. You did not resist having authority. That instinct of like, I don't want to be under somebody's control. It comes from your brain changing. You used to be in this beautiful hierarchical safe structure, which meant that however low down on the totem pole you went, you were the most safe. You were the most looked after. Everything above you was looking after you. And the only will of the thing looking after you was to keep you in that righteous harmony of your life. So if you're an animal, my job is to keep your food supply subdued, right? So we're looking after creation to make sure that the animals are getting looked after, right? But the animals are giving back to creation in this beautiful symbiosis. And so we're looking after creation in a way, we're looking after everything to keep it in harmony and balance. But what the Creator, our beautiful Creator, is saying in this is, you are never going to not be connected to creation. And the dynamic is a spirit dynamic. Even though you are dust, your harmony is dependent on spirit equally, right? If you throw the spiritual aspect off, right, your alignment with God, your Creator, how you're thinking, if how you think is thrown off, how you treat is thrown off. Right? Now look what we do to creation. Look how people so self-centered, and I'm throwing myself in with that, okay? But it's like you can just be so careless. We just, yeah. So the point of that is that the ground is now at enmity as well. Not enmity, that's not the right word. Its own harmony is thrown off, and that's why it's cursed. Thorns grow, but so does grain. Curse and promise together. So creation is bearing up under the weight of the discord, the dysfunction, the imbalance of humanity. Does that make sense? Okay, I hope so. The ground wants its master. The ground wants us to come into being who we are again, because it needs us to be in order for everything to be in balance. I know you get that. All right. So why toil? Toil is, I can't remember. Oh, I didn't write it down. I can't remember the Hebrew word. It's like Ishtar. No, it's not Ishtar. It's like Isha. I can't remember. No, Isha. No, that's woman. Okay. Anyways, the word for toil and striving is a very interesting word. But anyways, I don't even need to, let's not go into it. Work becomes anxious striving, right? The blessings have become burdens. Blessing and burden, which was one thing, is now split apart. It sustains life, but it exhausts life as well. So let me say that again. Work sustains our lives, but it also exhausts and depletes us as well now. It's necessary, but it's painful, and it's never complete, okay? So that disharmony brings with it a dissatisfaction. Okay, again, Adam's blessings have become his burdens. Now he feels more responsible than anything else. Okay, why does God say, to dust you shall return? Okay, dust is origin, not insult. Death limits evil and returns humanity to creaturehood. Even death carries mercy. Okay, so to dust you shall return is a merciful statement saying everything that's happened is now having to be contained by time, right? So there's a limit on their life. It's also contained by, we know later on, by judgment. That's why we have a second return coming. It's to demarcate, right? A time for creation where it stops suffering. It has to at some point, and that's what God's saying, is that's how much I love creation. All right. So that is where we're going to stop for today, because I just feel like that's a very tidy teaching or explanation of the whole blessings and curses. I hope that makes more sense. We're going to pick it up tomorrow with the next episode, which is Agnes Dei. So and this is going to conclude Who Am I? And I'm going to do a big summary, just like, okay, well, so what have all these episodes been saying? Who am I and who am I not? We're going to do that. Okay, so in summary, humanity has been left at this point in quite a state. It's really sad, actually, if you think about it. We really see the pure, beautiful intention of God in Imago Dei, made in his image, in Eden, in the whole creation story, Genesis 1 and 2. We see the intention of God, and that's how we know who God is. Right? Now we're looking at who we are, and we can see that we were really made to enjoy life, to put it in short. And the harmony and the balance is broken not with a moral act. It was never about that. Because it was never about them knowing good and evil. It was about having a relationship that was covenantal. It was based on trust and goodness and being free for other people and being a servant in your heart, being rested in your identity because you have godlike status, because you are sons of God, because you already are godlike, because you already have paradise, right? Because you already exist in the bliss of not having to feel either pain or pleasure. Right? Kind of can see that it's all meant to be held as a divine task in the knowledge of God, the divine alone. And that is truly bliss, is to be free of the burden of all that comes with knowing paradox. To be free of that, to just be able to enjoy your work every day, to be able to enjoy your relationships, to be able to enjoy all of life is bliss. It's shalom, it's peace, it's wholeness. And that is been destroyed. It's been destroyed by the boundary violation of the creature wanting more than what it has already been given, which is everything, and not seeing that and not being grateful for that. So that is truly destroyed the state of Imago Dei. And there are big scholarly theological conversations about, it's called like post peccari or non post peccari, which is an Aquinas argument, meaning, is it possible that God would actually destroy his own creation? And Barth and Bonhoeffer and other people, they all get into this conversation with Aquinas, really, and they say, no, destruction is destruction. In order for recreation and rebirth to happen, death must happen. And there's a whole argument about that. We're not really going to go into it, but what I want to leave you with today is that truly something's been destroyed. And we see Adam's line, even the way that it's represented in, I think it's Genesis 9, in the Toledot, which is the account. It gives a genealogical account, which everybody gets so bored of reading in. And of course, why would you want to just sit in your meditation time, in your prayer time, and read a genealogical account? It's in there more for a bigger theological point, and that is so that we can go back through, us theologians and other people can go back through and go, oh, that's talking about the fact that from the moment Adam is sent out of those gates, all the way down through Noah's existence, Noah's task, and the covenant that God's going to make with Noah, that entire line is marked by coming out of covenant with God. It's marked in a certain state, and that culminates in total destruction of the earth. Man left to itself in this state will end with worldwide mass corruption, to the point where, because remember, there's a spiritual rebellion going on as well, We're not going into all that. There are these mirrored rebellions going on, and God's like, I have to flood the earth. We have to start over. And the earth's ecology is completely destroyed by this flood. And I know I sort of talk about it like, oh, but we don't even know, a lot of people, we don't even know if the flood was real. Well, not so. If you guys go and look at Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson's work and Joe Rogan, it's like becoming mainstream now that because of our satellite technology, we can see places all over the earth where the patterns of what could only have been a global flood are distinguishable now. So it is getting confirmed, and it's just becoming, it takes a lot to shift a whole paradigm, right? Because people think all of this was mythology, but we know it's going to come out, you guys, that it wasn't. And for that reason, we know this flood happened. This flood ruined the earth, and God loves the earth so much he had to regenerate it, which took hundreds of thousands of years. All right. And that is really the beginning of the Noah line. And we're going to see Israel become the next covenant. I'm literally doing covenant theology for dummies right now. Here we go. Israel becomes the next covenant, right? So the next thing after Noah, we see Abraham. So God covenants with Abraham through his faith. Then, that's the whole Abraham, Isaac binding, right? Noah, Abraham has to do something that requires him to trust the God alone. That is just a new paradigm for what happened in Eden. That covenant with Noah, covenant with Abraham. God always comes into creation, finds one person, one seed to covenant with in order to replicate. And his decision is never based on how good that person was. And we know that because every person he covenanted with has their rap sheet. But he's constantly weaving a thread through history to say, I work like this. I work like that. I always work in relationship with humans, because that's the point of this, is that it's not a religion. It's not an institution. It's not a rule system. It's not a club. It's about relationship. It's about freedom and free will and trust and relationship. Okay. So we see that with Abraham, and then we see it with with Israel, right? So the covenant with Israel, which becomes our Judeo-Christian foundation, that covenant becomes a national, global, it becomes a national covenant to show the nations how God works. So then he's gone from working with a person to a people, because he's then going to be talking about his people in regards to, it's kind of a new paradigm for what Christ is going to call the ecclesia. But anyways, Christ hasn't come yet. So we've got ourselves right up to the covenant with Israel, right? The author of Genesis is a Hebrew author. It's called Hebrew. They're called Hebrews first. It's called Judaism later. But anyways, we're right up to that point. Okay? We're right up to that point. Are you excited? Do you love this? I love this stuff. Because you start to connect all the dots and it's like, okay. So that is where we're at. And the next episode is Agnes Dei. So we've gone from Imago Dei. Remember I said, did I say this? I think I did. It's like open hands, Imago Dei, to Sicut Dei, grasping, having godlike status, really? Grasping at godlike status, right? And then we're going to go to Agnes Dei, which is we're going to open these hands back up, we're going to raise them, and we're going to like hug ourselves or something. That's next. I love you, my angels, and I love you. See you tomorrow.